Some research suggests that Thebes was the leading power in Greece in the 13th century BC, and its ruler was the king of Aegaea. Aegaea is the Hittite name of an empire west of the Hittites, whose center of western Asia Minor could apparently only be reached by sea, but which also dominated parts of southern western Asia Minor, especially Miletus, in the 14th and long stretches of the 13th century BC. During the Persian Wars, Thebes sided with Orchomenus on the side of the Persian Empire and suffered the defeat at Platae in 479 BC, whereupon the heads of the Persian party were executed. As a result, Thebes' reputation had suffered so much that Athens was able to repeatedly break Thebes' influence and subject Boeotia to its own hegemony by establishing democratic constitutions in the Boeotian cities. In 506 BC, Chalcis was completely defeated by the Athenians, who then settled 4,000 Attic settlers on Chalcian territory, apparently making the entire island a dependent territory. Therefore, the island joined the rebellion against Persia and sent rowers. In 490 BC, Eretria was destroyed by the Persians and the city's residents were deported to the Persian Empire. After the Greek defensive victory in the Persian invasion, the approach split between Sparta and Athens. The Spartans, who were settled in the Peloponnese, wanted to stay on their territory. The Athenians, on the other hand, wanted to liberate and secure the remaining Greek settlements along the coast of Asia Minor. Extensive mining provided the resources for the economic and thus also the political and military rise of Athens in the 5th century BC. The Hellenic League, which was founded for the purpose of the Persian Wars, remained in place. The purpose of the Attic Sea League was to liberate the allied Greek cities in Asia Minor and to permanently defeat the Persians. The Athenians and their allies formed a fleet network and controlled large parts of the sea. As a simoki, the alliance encompassed a large number of polis on the Greek mainland, in western Asia Minor and in Thrace, as well as numerous Aegean islands. The members of the Attic Sea League had to cede their fleets to Athens and pay tribute. In 466 BC, the Sea League at Eurymedon won decisive victories over the fleet and army of the Persian king, which seemed to avert the Persian danger and called into question the necessity of the League from the perspective of those paying tributaries. In 450 BC, the threat to members of the Sea Alliance from the great power Persia receded, especially since a mandatory peace agreement was concluded after the Peace of Callias in 449 BC. This exacerbated the problem for the Athenians of holding together the alliance, towards which they had increasingly oriented their own socio-economic and political structures. The number of alliance partners who had their own ships continued to decline, and the assessment of contributions in money became almost the norm. If, as in Naxos and Thassos, individual polis seceded from the alliance, they found themselves isolated against the powerful Athenian fleet, to which they ultimately had to surrender, which resulted in harsh punitive measures. The coastal cities often had no fortifications facing the sea. Cities suspected of planning to secede from the Sea League were forced to tear down existing fortifications. Even in times of peace, Athens had 60 ships' crews between the mainland and islands on months-long training and surveillance trips. There was also a signaling and messaging system. In this way, Athens dominated the entire Aegean. The punitive measures imposed by Athens on renegade Grisons also included the surrender of the fleet that still existed at the time of the defection. From then on, such cities also had to fulfill their obligation to pay tribute by paying money. As a result, only Athens and a handful of other polis still had their own naval force, for example Samos, later only Chios and Lesbos. Samos, which took military action on its own initiative against Miletus, which was under the protection of Athens, was conquered after vigorous resistance, its fleet was destroyed, its capital was destroyed, and its residents were sold into slavery. In response to the Attic Sea League, the Spartans founded the Peloponnesian League. This was more free, and you didn't have to give up your army. The alliance was defensively oriented and aimed to secure the Peloponnese. Ancient Greece consisted of many polis, including allies of the Peloponnesian League. Greece is divided into the Peloponnese, the island kingdom in the south, the barbarian northwest Greece, as well as Athens and the Aegean islands and coasts. The polis in the periphery had their own problems. Byzantium had advantages and disadvantages based on its location. Due to their location, the two cities were affected by almost all the wars that took place in the Greek and Asia Minor region in the following centuries. During the Ionian Revolt, both cities were besieged and captured by the Persians. After the Persians' unsuccessful campaigns against Greece, Byzantium became oligarchic. In 478 BC, it was captured by the Spartan Pausanias. He ruled there for 2 years, but was then driven out by the population. Byzantium had had a democracy as its form of government since 476 BC. Mythical stories accompany the kingdom of Epirus. The kingdom of Epirus is said to have been founded by the Trojan prince Helenos, who, like Rome's forefather Aeneas, survived the fall of Troy. The Peloponnese was divided into different polis. Argos is an important city in Greek mythology. According to legend, Danaos was made ruler of Argolid after his escape from Egypt. His descendant Adrastus became the leader of the Seven against Thebes. Achaia had his own customs. Although the cities of Aigai and Pellene temporarily occupied a special position, Achaia essentially formed an ethnically based political unit, the religious center of which was the temple of Zeus Homerios outside Helike. A kind of evil Zeus. Achaia did not take part in the Persian Wars, nor was it initially a member of the Peloponnesian League. The First Achaean League emerged after the introduction of democratic constitutions in the 5th century BC, centered around the cult of Zeus Homerios. The Arcadians had long been settled in central Greece. Aristocrates, a king of Orchomenos, is said to have treacherously delivered the Messenians, who were the allies of the Arcadians, into the power of the Spartans in 750 BC at the time of the Second Messenian War, and was stoned to death by his own subjects for this, but abolished the kingship in Orchomenos have been. In the 6th century BC, Sparta sought to gain hegemony over Arcadia in order to gain access to the Isthmus of Corinth. In the 5th century BC, the region became a member of the Peloponnesian League and thus had to submit to Sparta's dominance. In the 7th century BC, when Corinth was ruled by the tyrants Kypselos and Periander, the city sent more colonists out into the world to found cities. The city was an important participant in the Persian Wars and provided the second strongest naval contingent after Athens during the Battle of Salamis. The city also took part in the Battle of Plataea with a large contingent. However, a falling out with Athens soon arose after the Athenian Cimon and his troops passed through the Corinthian area without permission in 462 BC. Open war broke out in which Corinth, in alliance with Epidaurus, defeated the Athenians at Haliais, but later lost an important naval battle in the Saronic Gulf. It was not until 451 BC that there was a truce with Athens, and later a peace treaty. However, the dispute continued to smolder and ultimately led to the outbreak of the Peloponnesian War as one of the most important factors, when the Corinthian fleet first suffered a defeat when it intervened in the internal political turmoil of the Corcyraean colony of Epidamnos and was nevertheless defeated in the naval battle of the Sabota in 433 BC. Islands on the coast of Epirus achieved a brilliant victory,